I'm 94 years old. I've been living in this house longer than most people stay married. 47 years with my wife, 3 children, a neighbor who was closer to me than my own brother. And I lost almost all of them because I kept a secret that wasn't mine to tell. Now, before I go any further, let me say something. I'm not telling you this because I want sympathy. At my age, sympathy doesn't really do much for you. What I'm telling you is something I carried around for more than 40 years. And when you carry something that long, it starts feeling less like a memory and more like a weight on your chest. And eventually that weight wants air. My wife Margaret and I got married in the summer of 1957. Small church ceremony, nothing fancy. Back then, weddings weren't productions the way they are now. You didn't have photographers hanging from ladders and 5-tier cakes and people arguing about chair covers. You had 2 families, a few friends, a minister, and 2 young people who believed they were about to build something permanent. I was 25. Margaret was 23. And I remember standing there thinking I was the luckiest man in Erie County. The following spring, we bought this house. Cost us $9,000. That might sound cheap today, but back then it was every penny we had saved and then some. I still remember signing those papers with my hand shaking. Not because I was afraid, because it felt like the first real step into a life that belonged to us. This porch was the first thing I fixed. The railing used to lean a little to the left. I spent an entire Saturday afternoon with a hammer and a level getting it straight. And when I finished, I sat right where I'm sitting now, and I remember thinking, all right, this is where life happens. And for a long time it did. Our first son, Michael, was born in 1959. Our daughter, Carol, came 2 years later. And our youngest, Daniel, arrived in 1965. 3 kids in a house that always felt a little too small, but never actually felt cramped, because it was full in the right way. Noise in the kitchen, school bags dropped by the door, Little League gloves left in the yard, cereal bowls that somehow never made it all the way to the sink. The kind of mess that used to drive Margaret crazy, and the kind of mess I would give anything to see again. I worked 36 years at the tool and die plant over on East Lake Road. Machinist work. Hard on your back, hard on your hands, but honest work. The kind of job where at the end of the day you knew exactly what you had built. You could hold it in your hands. And I was proud of that. Proud of the house. Proud of the family. Proud of the life we were building piece by piece. I'm 93 years old. I've been living in a nursing home for 20 years. I used to have a wife, a house, a life that took me 40 years to build. And every single piece of it disappeared in one afternoon, when my neighbor sat down at my kitchen table and told me a secret she'd been carrying for 20 years. What I'm about to tell you is a story about trust, betrayal, and what happens when the 2 people closest to you turn out to be working against you the entire time. I married my wife Margaret in 1952. I was 31 years old. She was 27. We met at a church picnic outside Springfield, Massachusetts. She was standing near the lemonade table, wearing a pale green dress, laughing with her sister about something I couldn't hear. But I remember the sound of that laugh, clear as a bell. And I remember thinking, that's the kind of laugh a man wants to hear for the rest of his life. We dated for about a year. Nothing fancy. Movie theaters, church socials, long walks after dinner. Then we got married the following spring. Small ceremony, maybe 30 people. My mother cried the entire time. We moved into a tiny apartment over a hardware store downtown. The kitchen sink leaked. The floors creaked when you walked. But we were young. And when you're young, you think love is enough to hold up the whole world. I worked at the Westinghouse plant for most of my life. 37 years assembling turbine components. It was honest work. No glamour. No excitement. But the paycheck came every Friday, and that meant groceries on the table and heat in the winter. In 1958, we bought a house, 34 Linden Street, 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, creaky staircase, and a backyard big enough for a swing set. Cost us $13,500. I remember standing on that front porch the day we moved in, holding the keys in my hand, thinking, this is it. This is where our life is going to happen. Our son Michael was born the year before that, 1957. Our daughter Laura came along in 1961. I coached Michael's Little League team every summer. I walked Laura to school most mornings until she turned 11 and decided she was too grown up to hold my hand anymore. I wasn't a perfect father, but I was there every day. And for a long time, I believed that was enough. Then in 1963, the Carters moved in next door. Thomas and Helen Carter. Thomas sold office equipment. Helen worked part-time as a receptionist at a dentist's office. Nice couple, friendly. Thomas was the kind of man who made friends easily. Within a month, he and I were sitting on the porch drinking beer together most evenings, talking about baseball, politics, work. He helped me replace the gutters one summer. I helped him rebuild his garage door after a storm knocked it down. Our wives became friends too. Margaret and Helen spent hours together. Coffee in the mornings, grocery trips, sewing projects. Sometimes I used to joke that Margaret talked to Helen more than she talked to me. Margaret would laugh and say, well, Helen listens better. Back then, that seemed harmless. For almost 20 years, the four of us were inseparable. Barbecues, Christmas dinners, 4th of July fireworks in the backyard, vacations at the same lake every summer. We weren't just neighbors, we were family. At least, that's what I believed. But when you're looking back over 93 years of life, you realize something painful. The biggest betrayals don't come from strangers. They come from people sitting right next to you. And the hardest part isn't the betrayal itself. It's realizing how many warning signs you ignored. Margaret joined a book club in the mid-70s, Wednesday nights. She'd leave around 7 and come home around 10. She seemed happier on those nights, lighter. I thought that was a good thing. Everyone deserves something of their own. A couple years later, she started wearing a new perfume, something floral. I remember telling her it smelled nice. She said Helen recommended it. That was the end of that conversation. In 1979, Thomas built a tall wooden fence between our properties. Said he wanted more privacy for the backyard. I helped him build it. Held the boards while he nailed them in place. Spent an entire weekend working on it. Funny thing about fences. Sometimes they aren't meant to keep people out. Sometimes they're meant to hide what's happening behind them. Margaret started sleeping in the spare bedroom in the early 80s. Said my snoring kept her awake. Maybe it did. I didn't argue. When you've been married that long, you learn not to make a fight out of small things. Or at least you think they're small. Looking back now, those were the years everything was happening right in front of me, and I never saw it. Not once. It was September of 1994. I just retired after 37 years at the plant. Gold watch. Small pension. I was 73 years old and looking forward to finally slowing down. One Thursday afternoon, Helen Carter knocked on my door. Thomas was at work. Margaret was out shopping. Helen looked different. Tired. Like someone who hadn't slept in days. She sat down at my kitchen table and folded her hands like she didn't know where else to put them. Then she said something I'll remember for the rest of my life. Walter, there's something you need to know. The clock on the wall was ticking. The refrigerator was humming. Outside, a car drove past slowly. I remember all those details because in that moment, time stopped. Helen looked at me and said, Margaret and Thomas have been having an affair. For 20 years. 20 years. At first, my brain didn't even know what to do with that sentence. 20 years means half a marriage, half a life. She told me she'd found letters in Thomas's desk, dozens of them, going all the way back to the 70s. The book club nights, the perfume, the fence, the separate bedrooms. Every piece of the puzzle suddenly made sense, and I had been standing in the middle of it the entire time, completely blind. I confronted Margaret that night. She didn't deny it, didn't cry, didn't apologize. She just sat there calmly and said, "I was going to tell you eventually." Eventually, after 20 years. When I asked why, she said something I'll never forget. She said I had become predictable, safe, comfortable, and Thomas made her feel alive. You know, after 93 years on this earth, I've learned something about love. Love doesn't ask you to destroy someone else's life so you can feel excited again. That's not love. That's selfishness wearing a nicer word. What happened next was worse than the affair itself. Margaret had been planning for years, moving money quietly into another account, taking out credit cards I didn't know about, even a small loan against the house. By the time the lawyers sorted it out, there was almost nothing left. The divorce was final in early 1995. Margaret kept the house. I kept my pension in a suitcase. I stood outside 34 Linden Street watching the door close behind her. Thomas was standing across the yard. He waved at me. I still remember that wave. My son took me in for a few months after that, but his wife made it clear the arrangement wasn't permanent. My daughter wanted to help, but she was raising 2 kids by herself. And around that same time, my health started failing. Early Parkinson's, my hands shaking, falling sometimes when I stood up too fast. The doctor said I couldn't safely live alone anymore. That's how I ended up here. Greenwood Care Center, room 12. Small bed, small dresser, a window that faces the parking lot. That was 20 years ago. Margaret died in 2007, in the same house I bought. Thomas moved in with her after the divorce. They lived there together for more than a decade. Sleeping in the bedroom, I painted yellow, because she said yellow made her feel happy. Thomas died a few years later. Heart problems. Helen moved away long before that. I never saw her again. My son passed away in 2014. Heart attack. 59 years old. There's something deeply wrong about a father outliving his child. My daughter still calls sometimes. She has grandchildren now. A whole life of her own. And I don't blame her for living it. At 93 years old, you start realizing something strange. Life doesn't end with the people who hurt you. It just keeps going. I'm still here, room 12, breathing, existing, and sometimes sitting by the window, wondering how a life that felt so solid for 40 years could disappear in a single afternoon. But I'll tell you one thing. After all these years, after all the anger and humiliation and loneliness, there's one lesson that finally settled in my bones. Trust is the most powerful thing you can give another human being. And once it's broken, you never quite get the pieces back, even if you live long enough to outlast everyone who broke it.